So there are a couple of ways to like style your HTML. You can style by tag, and this is the most general type of styling. What I mean by general is that there's levels of specificity. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but specificness basically that you can style elements by. So you can style it by tag. And what you need to do in your CSS file is just call the tag that you want to style it by. Remember, tags can be like H1, it can be image, it can be A, which would be your hyperlinks. It could be table, which would be your tables, ULs, OLs, which are your unordered and ordered lists. So what you need to do is select your tag just by calling it right here and place curly brackets right here. And then inside that, you would include your property. This is what we call a property, like color, font size, or width and height. And then you do a colon, and then you like choose the corresponding style that you want to make it. So for color, you can do purple or whatever. There's different types of colors, which I will get to. And then you can do font size, which you have to use like the units of pixels, along with the width and height of an image. So why don't you guys actually try that? You can go onto your practice website or something, your practice REPL, and try styling a tag. And what it does is it'll make all of your H1s this style. And it'll make all of your images this width and height. And once you get that, why don't you do a thumbs up again? Okay, so for the tag part, you want to put it into your CSS file. Let me show you what my REPL looks like. So this would be mine. And then I called the H1 tag, and then I just put in the style. Font family is also one if you want to change the font. I did my paragraph colors to be black. And my images to have a width of 200 and a height of 200. And then if you see here, I linked up, oops, not there, here, I linked up my style sheet. Also, what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you link up your style sheet, it has to be after all of this Bootstrap code. Cool, okay. So let's go to classes now. We can also style by class. If you remember yesterday in Bootstrap, I said a lot of classes, right? So you can also use classes for styling things in CSS. And what you need to do is you need to take your your tag, your opening tag, you need to put in the word class and then equals, and then give it like a class name. For example, I put purple text, nothing too specific, but it kind of tells what you want your style to do. And then I also put it for H1, and I did the same class. In your CSS file, you're going to be putting a period, and then the class name, and then you're going to put curly brackets again, and then the attribute, and whatever you want for your style. And we use the period in the front to signify that is assigned to a class. We use classes to give multiple elements the same styling. For example, I'll show you that on as well. So here, in my list item, I put down class equals purple text. And then in my style, I put down dot purple text. Or another example is the navbar is a class. Let me see if I can find that. So this nav class equals navbar and navbar default. So since the navbar is a class, I can just call it dot navbar, and then background color. Oh, thank you so much for telling me that. Okay, is that better? Okay. So yes, I was saying that dot navbar is going to be a class, because here it says nav class equals navbar and then navbar default. And I want to change the background of my navbar right here to be this color. So I did dot navbar and then the curly brackets and then background color. Background color is a property of navbar. So did everyone try getting styling a class to work? And if it makes sense, so the tag is going to pick all H1 elements, and your class is just going to pick any element that has the corresponding class. Even though they're different elements, like paragraph and H1, they still are going to be purple text because they have the same class. Okay, and the last one that you can do is styling by ID. Styling by ID is basically kind of the same format as a class. You have it inside of your opening tag, and so this would be P, and then ID equals whatever your ID name is. It's more specific, so we use these for like classes are kind of more general, so you would use it more often. IDs are kind of so in your CSS file, what you're going to do is you're going to do hashtag and then your title, your ID name. And then inside you would do the same thing as the other CSS. You pick your property and then your
Bear.
like I said, we use IDs to style specific elements. And on the bottom, it says, if you want to give multiple elements the same CSS properties, use commas to separate them. I can show you what that means. So for example, I wanted my table all to have borders, and I wanted the borders to be equal, and I also wanted everything in the table to have a center text, as you can see here. So what I did was I selected my table data, and I selected my table header. And I separated all those through commas. I also did that here. I wanted the class purple text to have the color purple, and I also wanted the class, the tag A, when you hover over it, it's going to be purple. I'll show you what I did with this in the next slides as well. And what hover actually is. Okay, so does anyone have any questions with styling by class, tag, or ID? Sounds good. So we'll move on. I have a question. So if we look over here in this piece of code, it says P class equals purple text, but it has an ID of blue text. And which one do you think will print? It'll print the black, the purple, or the blue. P says that color should be black. Purple text class says that color should be purple. And the blue text ID says that color should be blue. Which one do you think will print? Black, purple, or blue? So the right answer was going to be blue because because ID is the most specific. So this refers to the cascading part of the word cascading style sheets. The word cascading comes from specified priority scheme to determine which style rule applies if more than one rule matches a particular element. So what that's basically saying is if you have like multiple styles on one element, this is where the cascading part comes in.
Espera, mamá.
So what if you have a p tag that has a class and ID applied to it, and your CSS file has styles for all of those? Which rules apply? Well, some of you got it right. It was the blue one because ID is the most specific. And the cascade goes in this sort of importance scheme, I guess. Priority scheme, that's a good word. So first there is the important, and basically you can just put important next to any of your styles, and important will supersede any CSS style that you give it. So for example, if I put important next to the black, it'll turn out to be black instead of having it be blue, because important takes like the first priority. It's not really an efficient way to do it. It works, but you know, we can do things different ways. So specificity is one, and then last is order. So as I was saying, the IDs are the most specific, then it's the classes, and the tags are the least. If there are no conflicts, all three styles will apply. And as I said, important supersedes all of them. And what I mean by order in this one is the order that the style is written in. If you have like two blue text IDs, and then one says it should be light blue, one says it should be dark blue, but the light blue is written first, then the light blue will take over. So one thing that you can do with CSS selectors is that you can combine them. If you did the class content and an H2 header, it'll select all H2 tags inside of the div class content. As I was sharing yesterday, remember how we did we separated elements on our HTML file by using divs? You can also do the same thing here. Yesterday we did it with such as div class intro. I mentioned that yesterday, and usually we do that when we code our websites. A lot of people do div class content. So let's say you want to select all H2 tags inside of div class content. You would do dot content and then H2. You can also do something plus something. And the plus sign means that it selects all of the H2 tags following the P tags. So if you have if you have a header and you have a paragraph and you want the paragraph after your header to be italicized, then you would do header plus P. It's sort of like getting into more specifics and finding different ways to call certain things. Especially if you notice like a pattern in your website and you're like, hey, this always appears after this, or this always appears after this, and I want that to be something different. Then this is really convenient. Okay, so there are also special selectors. If you want to change something upon hover, use the CSS selector A colon hover. That's what you saw earlier in my REPL. There's also different ones. If you want to insert something before, or if you want to insert something after an element, you would do 2 colons, and then before, and 2 colons, and after. If you want to refer to a link that is currently being visited or any element that is being clicked on, you can do P 2 colons active. You have to use the 2 colons here. And if you did, I know it's kind of hard to think of like a paragraph being active. It's easier to think of it with like links, but a paragraph being active sort of means that when you like click and hold on it. Yeah, it can also be P hover. I know a lot of these things you would just think that they apply to one thing, but they can apply to many things. Like I said, I don't usually think about paragraphs being active, but as long as it means you just click on it and you're pressing on it, then the style will apply. So you can see in my REPL, I actually did one of them, or 2 of them. Let me show you what I did. Okay, so I did a hover, which will change the color of Tech United when you hover over it. And then I also did one for list item 1, item 2, item 3. And then I made a star appear next to it anytime you hover over it. And I know some of you were having trouble with the grid system yesterday, so this is what mine looks like. I just threw this together quickly so it doesn't look that good, but this is what mine looks like. So I did a column of 4, 6, and 2, I believe. So yeah, and whenever you hover over this, or whenever you hover over this. And to add a star after it, I used this. So I know this looks like a lot of weird calling. What I'm just saying is if there's a list inside of the class content, and content refers to anything in here, then when you hover over it, you're going to include this content after. So I'll try and say that again. So there is a div class content, and if there's a list in there, every time you hover over it, you're going to include this content after. So you guys can try doing a hover or p hover as well. You can try adding things before and after your elements. And I'll give you about 2 minutes to play around with that, and let me know if you have any questions. There are a list of so many more special selectors in CSS. I just chose prominent ones that you might find useful for your website. But you can definitely ask me for the list, and then I'll send you the website that has the entire list. And if you guys are wondering about the combining CSS selectors, this is what it is. They'll take a while to get used to, but you'll get it. Okay, so the box model. There's something that they call in CSS the box model, which refers to this picture right here. When editing the size of content, there are different layers and boundaries to consider. So there's padding, there's border, there's the margin, there's the content, obviously. And this is what it sort of looks like. I know sometimes, like, when you think about it, you think margin and padding, they sound pretty much the same, but there's actually quite the difference to it. So padding refers to the space between the border to the content, and margin refers to the space between the border and the next element next to it. And I have an example. Here. My box model right here is actually referring to this right here. It's just some text, a paragraph. And what I did was I changed the width of the paragraph to 250 pixels. Then I added padding. And it sets the padding from to 25 on all sides. And then the margin, which would be from here, 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 and here, I set to 25 on the top, 5 on the right, 5 on the bottom, and then 50 on the left. Sorry, I changed some of this last night, so that's why. So you guys can play around with the box model for a bit. There are different ways to okay. So for margin, let me share the REPL. So for margin, as you can see, there's like space here, there's space here, there's space here. If you were to put another box next to it, the margin would be 5 pixels. So it'd be like right here. Or if you were to put a box below it, the bottom would be 5 pixels as well. So it would be 5 pixels away from each other. Padding refers to this. And then margin would refer to this. It might not look like it because like 5 pixels is supposed to look small, right? But I actually put this in a grid system, which is why it doesn't really look up to scale. Because I said that this is supposed to take up 4 columns, I believe. It's okay. Oh, okay. So like the borders, you can do a solid border. You can do dotted borders. I believe there's a double border. Is that kind of what you meant? There is a way that you can do, oh, here. For my table, I did solid purple. You can change the colors too. I did dotted purple for this one. Okay, yeah. You can also do dash lines, a double border, I believe, so creates two. Those are the ones that I've heard of. There's probably more. I can definitely do some research on that. Let me look that up. Okay, so actually let me show you this website. CSS border style. This website is really good if you're looking for CSS documentation. It's w3schools.com. Let me type that in the chat actually. w3schools.com. It has a bunch of documentation for HTML as well, and CSS, and actually Bootstrap too. So border style is a property of CSS. I just did mine border because I'm also including the size of it. So you can do dotted, dash, solid, double, groove as well. We can try that. So I guess it creates this line right here. Ridge, inset, outset, none obviously, and hidden. So yeah, make sure if you guys like want to know more things that you can do with CSS, I'm just covering things that kind of will end up being useful, semi-useful in your websites, hopefully. So there's actually so many other things in here, such as what I was telling you guys about the different CSS selectors, such as hover. There's so much more things. So make sure you guys check out this website as well. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our slides here. So spans. Spans can separate a small part of your sentence or your element, and they can add style to it. So let's say you wanted to style something inside your paragraph. Well, you can use a span for that. So I did a paragraph tag, and then inside I want to change the word Tech Girls United into purple text with italicized font, and I want to change the font size as well. So I do a span, and I give it the class, and I did logo, and then I closed it, and still the text will show, whatever's inside the span will show. It'll just have this CSS style right here. And divs. So divs are kind of like, not the opposite of span, but how spans work is that they do something small. Divs do big things, right? So they separate entire contents and entire different groups of HTML content. So you can have an intro, for example, or content div, or a footer div, something like that, something on a bigger scale. For example, I did intro here, and you would style it the same way that we did a span, which would be dot something. Okay, so changing fonts. I know fonts are always fun. What I like to do is I like to go to Google Fonts, and what you can do is you can choose whatever font you want, press select this style, and you can add as many as you want, and then copy the code in the link option. So they're going to give you this, and what you need to do is you need to copy this into your head. Let me show you. I did that in mine. And you guys can also be looking along. Okay. Here, I imported these two fonts. And so I don't have to do anything. I just paste it in there. And then when I go to my style, I change the font family to this. They actually tell you and they show you the CSS code of what you need to do to apply it onto your tag, your ID, your class, whatever. So Google does a lot of help for you, and that's why I love using it, Google Fonts. So you can visit the slides whenever you want to and just go to there. And it's super convenient, super easy to use. As you can see, it says CSS rules to specific families and font family, and then that. Okay, so CSS has different color options. They have this website, it's W3 Schools again. And as you can see, oh, let me share the right screen. They give you a bunch of CSS colors. But what you can also do is you can go to your own color wheel you can play around with the colors for a bit, find which color that you want, and then it'll help you pick different combinations of colors. If I can change this. Okay, I don't think my computer wants to cooperate with me right now. Okay, well, that's fine, but I can still show you an example. So for this background color, I actually chose it the color wheel, and then they give you a hex code in there. And what you just do is you copy paste it, remember to include the hashtag, and then it'll give you this color.